Inside and out, everyone you know has got them. Your mom and dad and all your friends. Enjoy your scars, scars, scars. Enjoy your scars.
Welcome to Bearing Scars. I'm your host, Michael Ortel. On this podcast, we peel back the visage on the lives of people you know, or think you know, and tell their real story in their own words. Our previous guests have been hyper honest about their scars and how many of them have been self-inflicted. Their stories are real, raw, and honest. I urge you to pick up your phone and click the plus icon on your screen so you don't miss an episode of this important series of interviews. If you're having a hard time finding the plus icon or how to follow the show, simply send me an email to mike@bearingscars.com and I'll send a response on how to follow our show. I'm asking you to follow our show for a simple reason. Because while we will never charge you to listen to these impactful stories, we would like to know we're making a real difference. By simply clicking the plus button and following us, you're affirming what our real-life audio autobiographers are sharing is important and impactful. As always, thank you for your trust. On the last episode of Bearing Scars, we met Heather Rovet. You may know her from the Amazon Prime documentary Rom Con, Who the F is Jason Porter? On the first part of our discussion with Heather, we learned how she was conned by a financial scammer who took her for more than $100,000. On today's episode of Bearing Scars, we conclude this story by learning about the man some knew as Jace, others as Jason, and how he conned some of Canada's most successful female executives. More importantly, we'll learn how Heather became not just another victim, but the one who would finally put an end to his reign of romance-themed financial terror.
You know what? It just is so effing ironic that, you know, he knew. I told him on our very first lunch together about Simon and the money being stolen, and he probably sat there going, "Oh, this one,
wow,
this one's going to be putty in my hands."
Here's a mark.
Yeah, here's a mark. Like, I probably checked off a lot of his boxes, like single. Not the wealthiest woman this guy has by any means dated, because as you know from the documentary, like, there were some other very wealthy women, but I think he must have sensed like a certain naivete and a certain trustingness, and they exploit it left, right, and center.
You found out that you weren't the only person that Jace was dating.
I like, when we first met and went out on that date, he told me, you know, about the woman he had been with and had the kid with, and how now he was just kind of like, he was going through the family court, so he was just laying low, and he was on a couple dating apps, but he really wasn't looking for anything serious. Like, he used to look at me and say, "You weren't supposed to happen, Heather. This wasn't supposed to happen. You know, I wasn't supposed to fall in love." And I was like, "I know, but we did," you know. And I loved our origin story. You would say it's like the Hollywood meet cute, like girl meets boy by opening her front door. And I would tell my girlfriends, like, don't worry about going online, just renovate your house, like renovate your condo. You never know who might show up. I love that story. And then, you know, I had bought a furniture and decor business because the entrepreneur in me is like, well, real estate's getting a little more challenging. And I used to think that Jason and I were really going to build this empire. I'm like, we're building an empire, babe. We're going to be a trifecta. Like, I can do real estate, furniture and decor, and you can design and build. And we're going to be like a one-stop shop, and we're going to build this amazing business. And one day we can leave it to your son. Like, how great is this? Like, I was so future thinking and so optimistic, and so it felt right to me. Like, and, you know, and he would be there like, yep. But the whole time I would later learn everything about him was a lie. And so what happened, you know, like, life was pretty good. Things by June of 2021, things are starting just, you know, to be not as great as I would like them to. While I still have hope in us in the future, he's, you know, seems to be spending more and more time not at home, and his visits with his son, which I'm still not a part of, seem to be longer and changing dates. And, you know, he's going on like some guys' weekends, or he's going, you know, it just, things weren't quite right. But I never suspected, because I asked him point blank, are you cheating on me? You know, like, have you met somebody? Like, what's going on? Like, why are you? And he's like, no, I'm doing all that. He would turn around and be like, how dare you say that to me? Like, I love you. Like, I'm doing everything I do is for you. Everything I do is for us. I'm like, okay.
At what point do you think he stole your heart? And when do you think he started stealing your money?
Oh, well, I think he stole my heart from, you know, the very first kiss. And I think he wasn't just stealing. It's not like he ever outrightly stole my money. He just lived off me. Mm-hmm. But he also would very easily and frequently help himself to my bank card, my credit cards, the company cards. And more often than not, I wouldn't even know he had taken my credit card. And then I'd be like, oh, I've lost my credit card. I'd cancel it. And then I'd notice all these weird charges. And I'm like, this good thing I canceled it. Like, but it was him taking it and spending it.
That's stealing your money.
But it is stealing my money. But in the eyes of the law, they didn't see it that way. They felt like it would be too hard to prove because it's a domestic situation. But what he was doing, my parents came down to the city because they were going to a wedding, and I had 2 bedrooms at the condo, so they were staying with us. And, you know, 4 adults and 1,000 square feet, it was a little tight, and it was just for the weekend. But my mom went off to get a manicure, and she came back, and then she was like, have you seen my engagement, my ring? And I was like, no. She goes, I could have, like, she's like, you know, those little blue Tiffany bags, I guess when she travels, she like puts some stuff in there. She's like, I could have sworn I left it in here, but I don't know. And so we couldn't find it. We chalked it up to, like, I was like, hopefully it didn't fall down the drain, but we just chalked it up to there being a lot of action in a small space, and it must have gotten swept under. So when they left, Jason and I tore the condo apart, and we looked under the beds. We looked under the couch. We looked at, like, I'm like, Mom, this ring's gone. And she's like, that's so weird. And it was her, you know, upgrade engagement ring. It was like the second one my dad got her. So she was able to, you know, put an insurance. She, like, nobody ever suspected it was him. So she put in an insurance claim and got the insurance money and had something remade. And so that was that. Now that's the late 2019. By the winter of 2020, before it's COVID, my parents were going somewhere, and we used to spend a lot of time at the farm. And my mom has her travel wallet, and she, between trips, noticed that all her American cash was gone. And she was like, that's weird. I thought I had so again, nobody thought Jace. And then over the next year and a half, about a year later, she called me. She's like, have you seen my this? Have you seen my that? And I'm like, no. And I'd get off the phone with Jason and be like, I think my mom might be getting dementia. Like, she's missing like this and that. And I'd be like, Mom, maybe it's at your place, because now their condo was finished in the city. Maybe you left it there. And she's like, I'll check next time we go down. You're probably right. But it wasn't. And when she confronted her cleaning woman who had worked for her for a long time, her cleaning lady, she was so offended, she ended up quitting. Mm-hmm. But she also said it's Jace, because Jace had been at the farm doing a little renovation project for my parents. So he was left alone there for long periods of time. And I guess he scouted out the place and found where she kept her. Again, in the documentary, they made it seem like it was like a dial safe. And my dad was like, well, it was never locked. But what it really was this big, heavy safe box with a handle and a key. And she hid the box in her walk-in closet, and she hid the key in her underwear drawer.
Right.
And I guess in all his snooping around, he figured it out. And so what he would do, it's not like he probably stole it all at once. He would take it visit by visit. He'd go in, like, you know, when we're busy. It was a big house. So if everyone's in the dining room table, he could easily excuse himself and quickly, like within 5 minutes, go and take something. He also stole, somehow he managed to steal her Louis Vuitton luggage, which I guess he was able to steal because it's COVID and she wasn't traveling. You know, he stole tools from my dad. He stole a watch from my dad. He stole so much more than we actually ended up having evidence for. But so what happened was in July of 2021, Jace essentially picked a fight with me, which led to him claiming that he needed some space, which, you know, a week of some space I was cool with. 2 weeks I was like a little, and by week 5 I was pulling my hair out going like, this is not right. I'm still in this big house in Aurora by myself. We've gone to 2 couple therapy sessions, and the 3rd session he doesn't even show up for. Within a day of that, now it's Friday of Labor Day weekend in September. I had bought a desktop computer for us to share, and he had his user and I had my user, and I figured out what his password was, and right away saw some stuff on the desktop of the computer that was just suspect. And then I just went into his Gmail, and the first thing I saw in the Gmail was, you're a match, like, and I was just like, what is this? And I clicked on it, and it took me to a dating website, and I was just shocked. Like, my whole world within minutes was just swirling and turned upside down. I'm like, what is this? But my first inclination in those minutes was I actually called him, because I'm like, what am I seeing? But he didn't pick up, and he didn't call me back. And I spent hours at the computer going through various dating websites and messages and taking screenshot after screenshot. And he had several Gmail accounts that were all open, like all in the browser. And I got further down, and then that's when I saw, in Canada, we have this thing called Kijiji, which is like a Craigslist or a Facebook Marketplace before Facebook Marketplace. And I started seeing her jewelry, and I was like, what like, this cannot be. And then I just started going down rabbit hole after rabbit hole and pieced it all together that Jace Peretti, aka Jace Parati, was in fact Jason Porter, who in 2011, 2012 was all over the Ontario news as the online Romeo, and he'd been robbing women who he met on dating apps. And as my friend Kristen in the movie so perfectly says, this is his job. I remember she came over to the house that night. I got into the computer in Aurora, and she was sitting on the couch in the office laughing, going, this is his job. This is his job. He's still doing it. Like, and it's so true. He could go out with a woman probably once or twice. He's good looking and charming enough that you go back to her place, you get it on. She's in the bathroom. You know, he goes and like rifles through her things, grabs something, pockets it, leaves, never calls her again. And it's not until she goes looking for those earrings or ring or whatever that she's like, oh, I must have lost it. It wasn't right away that a lot of it came to light. It would be probably about 6-7 weeks later, because for the first initial period of time after everything blew up, my mom was he was arrested for stealing. My mom was able to press charges, and he was arrested, but he was released like the same day. Like, I thought he'd be held in jail. Like, you know, little did I know, I had to extricate my life quickly from him in that house in Aurora. And we were in a 2 or 3 year lease, you know, and we were only 1 year in. And I was so scared to call the landlord and tell him what was happening, because like, I just wasn't sure how he would react, because to him, it's a business transaction, right? He was so gracious. He said to me when I finally, a couple weeks after that explosion, told him what was going on, the first thing he said to me is like, are you safe? And I just started crying. I was like, yeah, more or less. But, you know, at that point, I'd been forced out of the house by the Aurora police or the York Region Police, because Jace claimed he was moving back in. And according to them, he had rights and was able to be there. But my biggest concern was that, you know, I had all my personal stuff in this house, the entire lower level, the basement of the house, which was 3,000 square feet with 14-foot ceilings, was the furniture showroom I had bought, you know. And I'm like, how do I know that this guy's not going to rob me blind? Like, I had to extricate not only myself, but an entire business. And because of the arrest, I couldn't communicate with him anymore. So every time I wanted to go to the house, I'd have to be escorted in by police. And it just like, it was so traumatic, and it was so crazy. And I don't know if that's fully conveyed in the documentary, how insane of a time of my life that was. And I would cry myself to sleep and then there's also the sheer shame and embarrassment of admitting to not only like myself, my family, and my friends that my life is all like, it's blown up. It's a lie. Like I just got taken. I got conned. I got duped. I got like whatever.
Does it feel comfortable knowing that it wasn't you, that it was him, that he did it to other women as well, and this was just his modus operandi, and it's not anything that you did, and it wouldn't have been anything that you did even if you were the only one. But there has to be some comfort knowing that you weren't the only one.
Oh yeah, I remember a couple weeks after, the bomb went off, and calling my mom and just almost going to this like maniacal laughter, going like, "Oh my God, it wasn't me. This wasn't my fault at all. Like, this is him. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not messed up. I'm not a bad person. I'm not toxic. I'm not unhealthy. I'm not capable of not loving. Like, this is him."
Why'd you let him in that day? After you knew he had done all these things, and then he wanted to renegotiate your relationship. Why did you let him back in?
I think it was just like thinking like, my heart isn't a light switch. And I'm like, I love this person, but this person isn't who I think he is. And like, it's like your head and your heart. And my head's going, no, no, no. Like, he stole all your mom's jewelry. He's a bad guy. He's a bad guy. My heart's like, but you love him. It's Chase. Like, he's the guy, he's your guy. Maybe there was part of me that was hoping this was all just a nightmare and I'd wake up and it would just not be true. And he would be who I thought he really was. Like, I thought maybe it wouldn't all be happening, or maybe he would have some great explanation and tell me I was wrong. He was wrong. Like, this was all a mistake. But I think I also let him in because there was also very much the logistics of the fact that there was a mess that needed to be cleaned up, and I couldn't rely on him to clean it up. And I didn't want to be at the house when he was supposedly there. So, I just wanted to get myself out and figure out what to do. And we were really enmeshed. Like, Jace had started accounts in my name that I didn't know about. There was like collection letters coming to the house. There was, all the utility bills that were actually in his fake company name. Like, there was the lease that I had to deal with. Like, I had a deep dive into like my financial records. I realized how much of my money he had been spending and taking, and I was trying to account for some of it, and I wanted some of it back, but I never got any of it back.
This is a cautionary tale for so many women and men that may get in this kind of a toxic relationship. When we come back, we're going to talk about how after the disaster of the two scams that happened to you, you rebuilt your life and you redefined who Heather is, and who Heather is helping now is really encouraging. We'll be right back. Today's episode of Bearing Scars is sponsored by the Churchill Strategy Group. In today's complex world, your voice needs to be heard, from City Hall to the halls of the White House. Whether you're navigating local regulations, state policy, or federal legislation, Churchill Strategy Group's strategic insight opens doors, builds coalitions, and turns challenges into victories. Visit them online at churchillstrategygroup.com.
Scars, scars, scars. Enjoy your scars.
We're back here on Bearing Scars with Heather Rovet. You probably saw her on the Amazon series Rom-Con, Who the F is Jason? And if you haven't seen that, I really suggest you see it, because we're going to talk just a little bit in the next couple of minutes about what she's done with her life since being scammed. But watching that documentary really drives home that while you're listening to one woman with us here today, there are so many. Heather, tell us about the documentary, how it came about, and how you found some of these other women.
Back in the fall of 2021, when, the police weren't able to help me. And in fact, Jace turned it all around and claimed I had assaulted him, and they were actually considering arresting me for assault, which didn't happen, thank goodness. But, when I started realizing actually how much he had taken from me and what was going on, I got no help from the police, and they didn't seem at all concerned that, like, I want answers, and I'm not Nancy Drew. I'm not a detective, but I'm trying pretty hard to find my own answers. But as luck would have it, and Jace used to actually say, Heather's really well connected. She knows a lot of people. My sister's boyfriend's neighbor is the editor-in-chief of a local magazine called Toronto Life. And they often do these, like, they call them big stories. Like, they'll do a deep dive investigative journalistic story into someone. So I had a Zoom with him, and about 2 hours later, after me telling this guy Malcolm my whole story, he was like, wow. He goes, first of all, I'm so sorry. They assigned a journalist. But right before our story came out, Tinder Swindler came out, the documentary that we were talking about. So it was like, yes, like, this is current. And within 48 hours of the story being online, I was getting emails and having phone meetings and this and that, and got, like, within a week I had an offer from a production company, and it was so crazy and so overwhelming. I was like, oh my God. But to answer your other question, after the story broke, a lot of other people came forward. They're all incredible, lovely, gracious women. And some would say, like Tiffany, who's in the documentary, like, she feels like I spared her, because Jace pops up on Tiffany's Facebook and she's like, oh, I'm single again. He's single, you know, like, so she's about to go on another date with this guy all these years later. And for whatever reason, she Googles him and finds the Toronto Life story and right away messages me. So, like, that, you know, that's how a lot of women we connected, was because of the Toronto Life story. And they're just, I love them all. I call them my angels. Like, every now and then somebody will call and check in on me. But up until as recent as November 2025, I had people reaching out to me just saying, I dated him briefly. I've had women message me, not just people who dated him, but, like, even old neighbors from when he was living with the woman who he had a child with, saying, did he ever give you a pair of diamond earrings? Like, we know he stole them from my house, but we can't prove it. But, like, they were really sentimental. They were my grandma's. Like, did he ever give you diamond earrings? I'm like, no. Like, and I feel so awful. Like, I feel awful for. Recently, I actually lost one of my diamond studs. I lost it. It wasn't stolen, but it was from my grandma. She passed on her diamond earrings to me. And I was in the airport in Fort Myers in the public bathroom on my hands and knees thinking I lost it in there. Like, it was, I can now know what my mom feels like. Like, when you lose something, it's not the diamond earring that I can replace that, but it's that sentimental value. It's that heirloom. It's that family memory that he steals. And he just, yeah. And then through Facebook, there's these groups now called Are We Dating the Same Guy? And ever since those came out in, I think that would have been 2023, those groups came to light. He would get posted and people would tag me. And then I'd have women saying, thank you. Like, he spared me. Like, I'm so glad I never actually went on a date with him. So I definitely feel proud of myself that I exposed him, and it's validating to have a major streamer and production company believe in your story and turn it into a story. But I always say, like, I'm not special and I'm not unique. And there is a Jason in every town and province and state and city and country around the world. And I've had many messages through Instagram and Facebook and emails from people all over the world who have a version of my story in their own way. And they just want to share it, and they want to be heard, and they want some sort of justice. So
do you find yourself having a hard time trusting men?
Yes and no. It took a long time to get to where I am today, but as I was able to finally write in my victim impact statement for the court, like, it's not just trusting men, it's trusting myself that I'm not going to get played again, that I am making a smart decision, that this person is trustworthy.
Right.
That's just as important as it's being able to trust myself as much as it is to be able to trust someone else.
Throughout all of you had one little buddy with you that every day you could go home to and you could trust and you could love. Tell us a little bit about Baxter.
I love that dog so much. Baxie and I had a relationship like no other dog that I have had. I mean, I think every time you have a dog, it's a different kind of relationship. But Baxie, when I did the renovation before I met Jace, we were homeless for about 4 months. We were having to stay with friends or couch surf or Airbnb. And there's Baxie right by my side through the whole time, and I would come home and he liked to sleep in my suitcases. And when I had to leave the house in Aurora because the cops told me if I don't feel safe, I can leave, that he had rights to be there. There was Baxie. He talk about an emotional support dog. Like that dog became my lifeline. And he, in those first few weeks and months after everything blew up, part of, I think, what kept me sane was walking him, having something to take care of. Mm-hmm. And if I felt like the walls were closing in or just overwhelmed, I'd be like, okay, Max, let's just go for a walk. Let's go for a walk. And he didn't walk very fast because he had little waddly legs. And it was just, I was never, even though I had the support of my family and friends, I was very alone in that time. But yet with Baxie, I somehow never felt completely alone.
Mm-hmm. Would you consider him, we ask all of our guests for their resilience routines, 3 resilience routines, things that you do to help you to kind of relax and get the stress off and overcome the crises of life. He would obviously be, and your new puppy, Tommy, would be one of your resilience routines. What are a couple of other resilience routines that you
100%. Whew. Well, I also, besides walking the dog, I meditate, and I started doing Kundalini yoga when I came home from Thailand in the spring of, would have been 2022. I started practicing Kundalini yoga, and there's something to me that's so great about Kundalini yoga because it's a combination of movement, chanting, and meditation, and it combines it all. And it's so, it plays in on all those years of, studying Buddhism and having that connection, and it gives you the yogic movement. And then, so I do Kundalini yoga. And I also, when I moved back to the city, rejoined my old gym, and exercise became very important to me, not for vanity reasons, but the more I would work out, whether it was a spin class or a yoga class or a Pilates class, or I'm a class girl. I like doing the classes, I like being led. You really do produce those endorphins and you feel good. And you also, being, at a smaller gym, you have a community. So I think walking the dog, movement, activity, community, and just also giving myself the grace of some days are going to be harder than others, and it's okay to sleep in today. Mm-hmm. Or if I want to wake up and take a bubble bath, I'm going to wake up and take a bubble bath. I recognize in the chaos that I have a lot of fortuitousness, that I didn't have to rush and I didn't have to go and work a 9-to-5 job. I had a lot of flow in the recovery, and I did a lot of therapy. I still do therapy, and I had the support of my family. And the saddest thing of all is that I had to put Baxter to sleep in July of 2024, and then 3 months later my dad died, so unexpectedly. And I the grief between that is just threw me. There were days where I would stop and I'd be like, God, how much more can you really, how strong do you think I am? Wow. This is hard.
How strong do you think you
This is
were?
hard. I think I'm pretty strong. I think I'm pretty strong. But back to your earlier question, like about trusting, it took me a long time to open myself up to the idea of dating. And, you know, I didn't want to. And it wasn't that I never wanted to become jaded. And I never did. I kept saying all along, like, I do believe in love. Love exists. I'm just not ready to feel love with somebody else right now, because I have to love myself. I had to do a lot of self-healing and a lot of self-forgiving, because I know the shame I would feel and the embarrassment I felt. Like I had to heal from that. And it's like lightning did strike twice, because I got conned by Simon and I got conned by Jace, and I didn't want to keep making mistakes. Mm-hmm. I needed to heal something, probably on a karmic level, needed some healing. And I guess, God, the universe, threw this hard lesson in my path. And this time it worked. But I am happy to say I'm in a really great place now. And I'm in an amazing relationship with somebody who, again, I met organically. Like, I didn't go on a dating app. We met through a friend, and it wasn't even a setup. We were both at a friend's house one night, and I had just it was about 6 or 7 weeks after my dad passed away, and I had Tommy for a couple of weeks, and we were leaving, and I had to walk Tommy. So I ended up walking this individual all the way home, because we just started talking, and that led to exchanging phone numbers, and it happened very slow. And I remember telling him after, I think, our third date, like, I was like, I'm going to try this, but we have to go slow. Mm-hmm. And he's so wonderful.
You went through a transition, really. I mean, with you with Simon, and then Jace, and then your puppy's gone, then your dad dies, and now you have two new men in your life, Tommy and Greg. and it's a good thing that you have this forward momentum. And you're doing one final thing, discussing your past, which is you're writing a book about it, aren't you?
I am. I feel very lucky. It was probably because of the documentary. I have signed with a literary agency. I have an agent. So, I mean, I still have to write the book and do the work. I've written the terrible first draft, and now I'm reworking it. And the next step is to kind of put the outline, to get the proposal together for her to shop around to publishers and get a book deal. But it's really cathartic, and I feel that the book will go a lot deeper than the documentary, because it will show a lot more of the day in, day out stories and the healing. The one thing with the documentary, I feel like it didn't really touch on the healing I went through. It did definitely shine a light on the frustrations and injustices of going through the criminal justice system. I can say I'm an advocate, but I feel like until something really changes, until when a woman calls the police and says, I just learned that the man that I'm living with, that I've been living with for 3 years, is a convicted criminal who is a predator on women, the cops at that point should be able to give a woman a restraining order, even though I've been told restraining orders are only a piece of paper. Mm-hmm. But I really hope that something in the system changes. And it's not just in Canada, because I know I was fortunate. Last October, I got to go to London, England, and give a talk to the City of London police. Have an entire romance fraud department, and there were FBI there, and there were like people from dating apps there, and people from banks there, and it was really an interesting experience to share my story with them. And I said in that speech, to the law professionals in the room, like, know how you respond to a victim can change the course of their life. Because that day when I called the police the first time and told them exactly what I'd learned about Jace being Jason Porter, I'm like, just look him up. And had they actually taken me seriously and believed me and done something, I wouldn't be sitting here today having this talk with you.
Mm-hmm. You'd have felt more confident in the system. as opposed to you having to do it all yourself.
Yeah.
Well, you've done a lot.
But I wouldn't have the crazy story. So, no.
You don't do these things for a cool story. When
you tell your life story to a documentary, like you don't, like I didn't make money, like you don't make money doing this. Mm-hmm. Like it's not, it's journalistically unethical to pay someone really for their story. Right. So I guess I did it because I wanted to make sure he was stopped. And I also wanted to make sure that nobody ever went through what I went through. And that might be a bit naive to say, but I think you're right. Like, I do hope people listen to this and watch the show. And if it, I already know I've made a difference. You're right. Like, I had a woman say like, "Oh my God, you saved me." And she was fortunate. She had the means to hire a private detective. And it turned out the guy thought she was in love with was living a complete second life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's so many others who are out there who are, as you mentioned before, ashamed to admit it. Ashamed to admit that they fell into the honey trap or that they fell into the scam that's out there. Yeah. And you're at least helping. I mean,
totally. We could probably talk for another hour just about shame, carrying shame. And it's not a good thing to hold on to.
Mm-hmm. That's fact. That is a fact.
I mean, I've been asked this question too, and it's one I still battle with a bit, but people are like, "Do you forgive him?" And I'm like, I don't know. I can forgive it. I'll forgive Jace for what he did to me, but what he did to my mom, it's not fair what he took from her. And again, it's not about the actual jewelry. It's sad. It's really sad to me. Like, he stole her memories,
But you have done a lot yourself, and you've done a lot in the sense that there are women who have watched that documentary, who will listen to this podcast, who will read your book, who will maybe say to themselves, the guy that I'm with, the financial advisor that's given me advice and taking my money, maybe I should think twice and not just trust them. So if you've done anything, perhaps you've given, and you've mentioned Nancy Drew a couple times, you've given other women the chance to become their own Nancy Drew and to understand that they themselves have the power to find out, and men too, to find out what's going on in their relationships and really advocate for themselves as well as for other people. Where can people get a hold of you, Heather?
Well, I have a website, heatherrovet.com. I'm pretty sure that there's a way to email me through the website, but if not, I can be reached through Instagram or Facebook, and my username is just my full name, Heather Rovet. I'm on LinkedIn, just my name, really. I mean, if people Google me, I'm pretty easy to find.
What do you want your legacy to be?
Ooh. I guess just that I made a little bit of a difference in the world. Mm-hmm. Just a little bit. I don't need fame or glory or, I just want to make sure that I think that's going to be cool about having a book. Mm-hmm. Because I think the book will live on longer than a documentary, the hype of the documentary. But, I just want people to know that, like, I am trying to make a difference in the world by exposing the injustices of the criminal justice system and these predators. And hopefully it will make a small dent. And wouldn't it be cool if there is some new legislation passed? I know both our governments are trying to pass coercive control as a criminal act, not just within family court. But from what I have read about the wording of this law, even what he did to me still wouldn't kind of fall under it, sadly. So I don't know. I was fortunate after the documentary came out, MPP, which is a member of provincial parliament, reached out to me, and I got to go and meet him at Queen's Park, and our conversation will still continue. I would love to do more public speaking to share my story, not just as a feel-good thing, but like I said, I think there needs to be some training with police and how they respond to victims. And it's very, even, I remember asking to be assigned to a woman detective, thinking she would be a bit more gracious or a bit more, copacetic with me. And she wasn't. Like, she was just as dismissive as the men. And I think they need to listen more. The only way we're going to learn is by educating ourselves and listening and talking.
So the little girl who wanted to be an actress and tell other people's stories is now going up on stage and telling your own.
Hopefully. Do you think I should write a TED Talk? Maybe I should do a TED Talk. I don't know. If I could back it up and do it all over again when I got into the computer that day, before I even called the police, knowing that there maybe was like a hotline, like somebody I could talk to who could just help. Like, right. If I can be that person for somebody in a crisis, I would be honored to help somebody.
There's a little bit more to come. Stay tuned for Scar Tissue.
Scars, scars, scars. Enjoy your scars.
And now, Scar Tissue. In our discussion, part 1 and part 2 with Heather Rovet. And if you haven't listened to part 1, I really encourage you to go back and listen to that episode because it's fascinating. But in that episode and in this episode, the one word that constantly came into my mind was trust. Throughout these two discussions with Heather, one of the things that I hope you may have noticed is who she was able to trust throughout the process. Her family, her friends. And as Heather moves forward, and we think beyond this 2-part series with Heather, maybe we should ask ourselves who we trust and with whom we have unconditional love. Is it family? Is it friends? Is it our little pets? Whatever it is, go to them today and thank them for being there for you. And here on Bearing Scars, we're going to continue to be here for you as well. Hopefully, providing stories that inspire you, make you think, and let you know that even though you're bearing scars, you're not in this alone.